Thank you, Cindy. Let's see if we can get, there we go. So a little bit of a timeline. We West Valley City's been using Cityworks since 2008. We have had the opportunity to fully implement it with our inspections, and we found great success with it. And we found that the applicants, the contractors, and so forth have really been receptive to a lot of the things that we've been able to do with it. And we wanted to take the next step and be able to invite the public to have more of a say in what the applications were, and move more towards a digital age. So in 2016, we started development using the public portal and some of the tools that were the early tools that were in Cityworks. We ran into some complications. There were some things that we wanted to do that were beyond what was available at that time. And so in 2018, we brought the Timmons Group in to help us with this development. They were able to implement a lot of the features that we wanted and be able to make it more receptive, and gave a nice fresh feel over the in the interface that they had there. Late 2019, we began live testing of it. Note to self, when you're doing some testing and you bring in a small group to do it, make sure you turn the notifications off for everybody else. We ran into a surprise when no matter what the application was, whether it was digital or through the portal or through a paper application that we were then manually putting into Cityworks, all of those notifications went out notifying people we had this brand new portal that they could come use. So we quickly, all of a sudden, it went from a live testing to live use. We actually found a lot of people were receptive to it. We've received lots of compliments on it. And to be honest, we've actually had a few of those people have recommended that we go talk to other jurisdictions locally and ask them to use it as well. They found it a lot more appeasing and easier to use than theirs. In 2020, early 2020, we decided to direct everything to the portal, and we were no longer taking paper applications at that time. And of course, 2020 is anything but boring with everything that we have had going on. Part of our portal, we have several different parts of it, but specifically for building inspections, we have all of the applications are submitted now online through it. They're also through an integration we have use OnBase for our plan reviews. They're able to upload their documents, and it's almost a seamless transition between the document portions and the other parts of the application and Cityworks portal. Through also this portal, they're able to track the applications. They're able to see what they're doing, see who's reviewed it, who has not. This has actually made it a lot easier on a lot of my staff because they're no longer getting the phone call saying who's the holdup. They're now able to see that right there online, who hasn't reviewed it and who has. We also have implemented a payment system where they're able to pay online through there. They're able to also print the permit and schedule inspections. And we say print the permit, it's more of a download and just have it available. And we don't require them to print it out when the inspector goes on site. If he asks for verification of it, just to make sure he's in the right location and looking at the right information, they can pull it up on their phone, tablet, computer, or whatever. We do allow that. Scheduling of inspections has been very interesting, and we've learned a lot with this. One of the things that we're having to do is now that we're no longer manually entering them and we're able to keep track of them that way, we're relying a lot more on Cityworks. And we're having to double check it a few more times to verify that we're maximizing the total use of time that we have with the inspectors. Of course, then we went like I said, 2020, with it being interesting and all. In March, we were in the early stages of the the virus and the warnings that were coming out. And we had a situation where a gentleman came in, asked a few questions, and then left. Happened to be my supervisor was there at the time, and when she saw what happened, she said that could have been done with a phone call or an email, and there's no reason why that interaction had to take place. So immediately after that, she marched down, and on March 16th, we closed our office doors. City Hall still remained open for the general public, but we were only open for appointments only. Since we had a digital presence, we were able to do this. We were able to have people still do their do their applications online, still be able to get the permits. We were still able to do the plan reviews, and for the most part, nothing really changed other than we no longer accepted paper. And any questions that the public had now had to be done by phone call or an email. And if there was a lengthy conversation, we would make appointments at that time. And of course, we still did scheduling of inspections by phone at that time. And as we were still in a transition period with this and trying to learn what we could and could not do. 2 days later, we closed our doors for other reasons. We had an earthquake just outside the city limits in Magna, a magnitude of 5.7. This was pretty substantial for this area. Other people, I know there's some people in California probably think, no big deal. For us, it was a pretty big deal. It was an eye opener and a shaker, so to speak. Initially, we closed everything down so we could come in and inspect the buildings. Each of the buildings with the public buildings for the city had to be verified that they were structurally sound before we could open them up to the public and also to the city staff. As we experienced aftershocks through this, it was determined that we would just keep the buildings closed for that first day, and then we would open them back up the next after that. We've in the 2 days since that earthquake, we received over 213 aftershocks. The largest of those, they're greater than a magnitude of 3. We had over 26, and these were felt all the way from Provo to the south to Ogden to the north. And so we were, out of an abundance of caution, it was determined to just go with an online presence only. And of course, with the COVID-19 and everything, we just decided that we would just maintain the offices themselves would be closed for the rest of City Hall. One of the major damage areas that we had was a manufactured home, a residential park that we had that was just close to the border of Magna. And in this case here, there wasn't really much damage to the buildings other than they fell off of their foundations. And so they had to all be replaced and restored back into there. And in this particular subdivision, we had over 60 homes that this affected. And I think in the total subdivision, there's probably just over 100. So we had a good substantial amount of them that had to be repaired. A lot of the damage that we saw throughout the city was just minor of nature, but it was substantial enough that we had to report it and repairs would be needed. But thankfully, we did not have to evacuate any buildings or have any others collapse other than these homes that we've described. So when an inspector goes out and does an assessment for this, we usually hand them a stack of papers, a form called an ATC 20. This is a rapid assessment of the damages that have occurred, and basically is on a grading scale of, is it habitable or is it not? Is it still standing? Is it completely gone? And we usually hand these out, but we'd just gone paperless. So we had to figure out a way that we were going to handle this situation. And usually with these forms, the inspectors would go out during the day, they'd fill out the forms. At the end of the day, they'd come back with a large stack. They would then hand that off to staff who would transfer that into spreadsheets of some sort. And then that information was then translated and given to the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, where they could then know where they needed to put their resources the next day or two. So it's kind of a long, drawn out process, a couple of days that can happen with this. So we went digital. We created an online form, and this form would be utilized by the inspector in the field on their phone, and they could quickly fill it out. All the data was then captured and automatically put into a spreadsheet. So we'd already taken out the typing pool, so to speak, and now we had the information that we could give the next day to the emergency operations center. But it wasn't still good enough. We thought there's got to be a better way, a quicker way to respond to this. And of course, within Cityworks, utilizing Respond, we have the ability that the inspector in the field can go in, and thank you very much to Cara and Gabriella in Cityworks in helping put this together. But we now have an ATC 20 form that's dedicated, and a portion of the database is set for this, where the inspector will fill out this form in the field in their tablet or their phone. They'll get a graphical representation of where they're at. It'll be pinned with a color marking of sorts or a different shape mark that will identify the severity of that information. And then all of that is gathered in real time and delivered to the EOC through a dashboard where they can now see the different levels, and they can see where that mapping, and they can see the charts, and we can configure this, to whatever they need to see for that day, so they can have a real quick response. They can know we need to get their resources to this area as quick as possible. So we were grateful for that. We haven't had a chance to implement this yet, and praying we'd never have to, but this is there and this is available. And if anybody wants to, it's freely out there for whoever's using Respond, that if you want to put this in there, it's not just for earthquakes, but it can be easily tweaked for tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, or whatever else may be out there that needs to be taken care of. One of the other things, as we moved back and started going back into inspections on a normal basis, and actually in response to the earthquakes, we found out we had a couple new trials that were happening, or new challenges that we had to overcome. One of these was that we had limited access to homes. We would receive a call from a home where they would say they had earthquake damage. We would then, as we get there and we're coming off our vehicle at the curb, somebody was at the door saying, you want to stay away, you don't want to come any closer, we've tested positive. So we had to quickly come up with a way that we could assess these damages and be able to look and see what needed to be done, and if any repairs were needed, or if they could still live in the home or not. So one of the solutions that we had was to do a virtual inspection, where we would link up with the homeowner, the contractor, or somebody that we would do either FaceTime or a Google Duo, and we would have that communication where they could then walk through the building and we could see it on our devices, and we could direct them as to what we needed to see, and we could make a rapid assessment of what needed to be done. We have since implemented this as a program for some of our inspections, some minor in nature, such as water heaters, furnaces, simple things where we have to get inside the building but are not allowed to in these ways. We have this, obviously, and the limitations are posted on our website. And we've put some stipulations on it as to what we can do and can't. And also within those lines, we've identified the two programs that are able to use. And of course, both of these are free. One of them is already installed on some devices. The other one is a free download. But we'll work with either of those so that the people don't have to download multiple applications. So we're always looking for solutions. And of course, new problems are always arising with us. So one of the things we have is, how do we know that the person we're talking to is at the location? So we direct them to walk outside and show us the address. Sometimes people don't trust us with just a phone call. They think we're just another salesman. That wants to see what their furnace looks like so they can tell us whether or not they want to sell us a new one or not. So in some of those instances, we've actually had to drive up and park outside of the home just to say, yeah, this is me. I'm the one on the phone. And we're still trying to figure out how to schedule a rapid response such as this. A lot of our scheduling of inspections is a 24-hour notice. But in some of these cases, we actually prefer to have them within an hour's notice. And trying to figure out how to get that, receive that communication, that request, and then convey that onto the inspector has been quite a challenge for us in many ways. But we're excited for the future. We're excited where things are going. Like I said, there's many opportunities, and within Cityworks, we see, especially in Respond, we see where we're able to utilize many of the tools, and they help us move forward, especially as we go into this digital and this new age with all this. So with that, I thank you for the time that I have had to present this.